Cool. So we are in budget and finance. We have present Ms. Zorb, Ms. Underwood, and myself. And of course, we have guests for tonight to go over the 2021 budget. So I won't keep us talking. I know you guys just got the agenda like 10 minutes ago, and that's because my email, I thought I hit send, but apparently I didn't. So real easy, 2021 budget, and then back in for salary ordinance. And then I will catch up minutes at our next meeting, as I'm sure there will be a lot. So can I get an accepted agenda?
Yeah, I'm okay with the agenda, except it looks like we're going to be here for 15 hours.
No way. We're not.
Okay.
Promise, not 15 hours today. Awesome. So without further ado, I will turn it over to, I guess, Ms. Hall or whoever wants to speak first about the 2021 budget.
Yes, I'll do that. Good evening, Ms. Bailey and all the members of Finance Committee. I will not take too long, as Ms. Zorb just mentioned. I simply wanted to say that this time last year, we were presenting to you, of course, the 2020 budget, having no idea what was about to occur. However, I know that you all also remember that when we did, that was the first budget that I presented, excuse me. And when I did, I realized only about a month and a half after that our revenue projections were overly ambitious. I then worked with, fortunately, Rick Cropper at the time, and we, of course, downgraded our projections. And one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up is because it appears that our more conservative approach seemed to bear itself out over this past year. This year, of course, now we have a new finance director. And so she has worked with each of the department heads, of course, to put together their proposed budgets. And as you mentioned, Ms. Bailey, they all are here tonight, and they will be presenting to you their requests, their expectations that they have for their particular departments. I say that because, of course, one of the things that Ms. Hall did when she submitted the budget to you was, according to law, she had to submit a balanced budget. But we do recognize that you all obviously are at least council, has the final say. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that each of the department heads were here to be able to present their side of the budget. I think you will find, as Ms. Hall makes her presentation, that she has done an outstanding job of making sure that she's put the mayor's desires and vision in there, incorporated the best she could, with also the concerns, as many of the concerns that she could address of both the police and the fire department. So having said that, I will turn it over to Ms. Hall.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me know if you can or cannot see it.
Ms. Hall, I can barely hear you. Is it possible for you to speak up?
Can you hear me better now?
It's a little better. Can anybody else hear her? Is it me?
I can.
I can hear her, and I can see your screen, Ms. Hall.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to run through how I compiled our budget, and our department heads, if y'all want to jump in and kind of maybe talk about some of the things that got left out that we were not able to prioritize, you're welcome to do so. Sorry. Okay, so I want to begin by just touching on some of the priorities that the mayor wanted to focus on in this 2021 budget. The very first thing is our fiscal stability. The goal is to try to build a reserve balance in our general fund. And the reason for that is because we need to have, just protections against one-time occurrences or any type of challenges that may be coming forward against us in 2021 or in other years. But at this point, we do not have a reserve built into our operating budget. So I attempted to try to at least maintain at least $100,000 as a carry forward balance to try to start building into that. The GFOA does recommend that we have a minimum of 2 months of either revenues or expenses in a reserve fund. And in our case for this city, it would be approximately $550,000. That's something that's going to take us a few years to try to build up to. But I wanted to make a decent effort at trying to get that started. One of the other priorities is making sure that our fire department is sustainable in 2021, just because it's in a fragile position right now. And the other priorities would be recreation and beautification, just to ensure that as we are trying to create a more stable financial outlook, that we are still making sure that we are beautifying the city and making sure that North College Hill is a place where people want to come to live, work, and play. So we're going to talk about all the funds combined in aggregate. And I just want to go over this kind of high level. Sorry, I've got you guys in my way here. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that with all funds combined for 2021, we are proposing approximately $7.6 million for all funds combined. There are still some tweaks that may need to be made for our projected 2020, as there's still some information that's still coming through the pipeline from the state, as well as since we did receive CARES funds, there are some monies that need to be shifted and some expenses that still need to be shifted to the CARES fund. I also want to highlight that our general fund revenues make up approximately 44% of all the resources that the city brings in. And also, if you want to look at the special revenues intergovernmental line, that is almost all entirely driven by OPWC grants for the road projects. And then our next largest revenue stream, of course, are our levy funds. In the other special revenues, there for 2020, we had $975,000 that's listed as a zero interest loan. That is in our street levy fund. I'm not 100% sure if that's something that is renewable. That's something I still need to discuss with Ron and Marty to see if that's something that we are still expecting for another year. So like I said, the 2020 projected may change a little bit by the time we get closer to passing the budget. But I just wanted to draw your attention to that. That's the reason there's a difference on that line item there. And altogether for 2021, we're showing approximately $6.7 million in non-capital expenditures. And as you can see as well, the general fund brings in about or expends about 47% of all the resources that the city brings in. And just to kind of get you to understand why there were some cuts that had to be made, our police department currently represents about 50% of the general fund in the 2020 budget. And for 2021, we've had to reduce that utilization to around 43% of the general fund. Well, there's going to also be another pay in January. What's happening there is that there's 27 pays in the year 2020. So we're taking that last pay and shifting it to 2021 so that the 2020 budget will have a carry forward balance for this year. That way we're not ending up in the negative. I'm pretty confident that we will end this year in the black with at least $100,000, probably a little bit more, close to maybe $200,000 to carry forward next year that will help offset that additional pay in January. Our capital expenditures are going to be about $294,000. That includes, there's like $5,000 in the street fund. We left $60,000 in the fire equipment fund for any equipment that may come up. There is enough budget in that fund to sustain that. On the fire levy fund, there's $14,000 that we've plugged in for gear and equipment for fire. And we are estimating approximately $210,000 for the street levy fund for any equipment that might be needed there in 2021. And finally, the debt financing is going to be approximately $128,000 for 2021. That includes the payment on the roof. I believe that is the roof that we pay in the general fund, some equipment out of 201, and the ambulance out of 211. Okay, so we'll take a closer look at the general fund. The 2021 general fund currently is not structurally balanced. That simply means that our expenses outpace our revenues. However, it is balanced under the state of Ohio's definition of a balanced budget, where we have carry forward balance or reserve that covers that difference between the revenues and expenses. We're expecting approximately $3.335 million in revenue. For our operating expenses, we're expecting to expend approximately $3.453 million. The reason why our expenses are budgeted a little bit above the revenues is because of that 27th pay. So in January, there's going to be 3 pays. And so we're building that into the budget. That brings our personnel to about $2.6 million. Contractual services are $665,000, and all other expenses, supplies, training, that is coming in at around $89,000. And then we have the $72,000 that is budgeted for capital and debt payments. So this is just an overview of the general fund so that you can see where our revenues are coming from. We are expecting property taxes to come in a little lower than we have for 2020. I still need to reach out to the auditor to determine what factors played into that reduction. So I won't comment, specifically on why those numbers are lower than 2020. I can provide that to you as soon as I get an answer back. We are estimating earnings taxes to be about 2.5 million, 2.55. So basically we're budgeting kind of flat with 2020. And the reason for this is because there are still so many unknowns with COVID-19. We're not sure how the unemployment rate this year is going to impact income tax revenues next year. And we're not 100% sure if there will be another shutdown or what may happen between now and the end of the year that may affect income tax revenues that are collected in 2021. So to be conservative, we placed the budget for earnings tax at about 3% below where we project to end the year. And just to draw your attention as well, our earnings tax is literally the largest revenue source that we have in the city. It's about 76% of our general fund. We are expecting rental registration to pick up due to new properties that we are currently not collecting that registration fee from. We had an employee do a investigation, if you will, to see how many properties we were overlooking as far as our rental registration fees are concerned. So we believe that that revenue will pick up in 2021. Okay, so.
Paul,
Mhm.
real quick though, are we going to be fining the people based off of our ordinance for not registering?
I believe, I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean finding them based on the ordinance?
So basically, they have X amount of time to register their rental property, and if they don't, they have to start paying a fine.
That's something that I would have to talk with Ron and Bill Knight about to see, because of the new properties that we located, how they'll be contacted and when and if a fee will be assessed to them, or if there's a fine that is assessed to them. So I can look into that, and if there will be additional fees or fines assessed, then we can definitely update the budget accordingly.
Yeah, I can answer that, Ms. Bailey. So we, as Ari said, we had an employee who did some research, went through each of the properties in the city to then identify which ones were not owner occupied. And so as a result of that, the original list that we had when I first got here has now more than doubled. So Mr. Knight, of course, will be sending out those letters, obviously before the end of the year. And we will treat each one of the new ones as well, the same way as we have treated the rest of them. If they do not, pay their registration fee on time, or, if they don't pay it, then you're right, they will be assessed. But the point is that these will be first time registrants because these are now additional properties that we've identified.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to expenses? Okay, so here's an overview by department of our general fund expenses. We've built into the budget 4% increase for police and for fire. However, because police absorbs almost more than 50% of the general fund, we've had to look at cuts there as well as in other parts of the general fund and other departments to try to balance the budget. So I am recommending that there be a 25% reduction in the full-time police, maybe about 50% for the part-time, again, to balance the budget. If there are other ways that we can offset other maybe non-personnel so that we can maintain some of the personnel in police, then we can look at that as well. But with all of the budget requests that were made, we would actually be at a almost $400,000 deficit in the general fund without making any cuts. For fire,
Ms. Hall, I'm sorry.
yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there, I know we've had issues in the past about overtime. Is overtime a factor in that at all?
Overtime is not a singular factor in the deficit. I did reduce it by about I want to say it was about 20%, maybe 30%. And that was just in correlation with the reduction of staffing. But it is just that with salaries increasing by 4% every year and our revenues do not increase that quickly, our revenues maybe increase about 1 to 2%, our expenses at some point are going to run out of funding. And that's really where we're at. To kind of go back to the joint fire district, one of the things that we were looking at as far as our analysis that had that passed, that would have brought in another or alleviated about $600,000 in the general fund, which would have been able to cover, at least temporarily, some of these increases. But because we don't have a reserve, we don't have any wiggle room in our budget. So as expenses continue to increase and increase and increase, at some point we're going to run out of revenue without increasing revenue or making, these difficult decisions to reduce expenses.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also with fire, I tried to move as many expenses as possible off the general fund into the equipment fund or onto the levy without over exhausting either of those funds as well. Another add-on would be in the community engagement line. I added $15,000 there for economic development for any beautification efforts in the city or any other economic development activities within the city. We also built into the budget a $12,000 increase in IT for city networking. And finance and administration took a reduction of up to about 20% as well in the personnel and non-personnel line items to try to balance the budget. So to just give a financial overview of the general fund, our 2020 cash balance, essentially we began the year with approximately $112,000. Our cash inflow from revenues, approximately 3.5 million. We're expecting expenditures to hit around 3.4 million. And we're expecting hopefully to have that surplus there of $107,000. That plus the beginning cash balance, we're hoping to end the year at around 220,000. That 220,000 will be what we need to offset the cost of that 27th pay. So again, in January, there's going to be an extra pay because we're deferring the 27th pay of 2020 and pushing it into 2021. So 2021, we're expecting to end the year hopefully at $101,000.
Ms. Hall, I have a silly
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
Does that just mean that we're very literally kicking the can down the road? So will there be 27 pays in 2021 then?
Correct. We're pushing off that extra pay from 2020 into 2021.
Okay.
Yes, but I want to make it clear. The answer to your question, Ms. Zorb, is no. The reason there would have been 27 pays in 2020 is because normally there would have been 3 pays in January, but January 1st is a Friday. And so if we were going to pay it on the holiday or the day before the holiday, we would be paying it in 2020, which is why in the beginning of the year, we mentioned that there would be 27 pays this year. So by moving it from Friday to Monday, January the 4th, we actually stay with 3 pays in 2021, maintaining 26 pays in 2020, as well as 26 pays in 2021. So that is what is happening.
Got it. Thank you.
So at the bottom of this chart here, I show the GFOA recommendation for a end of year cash balance based on our expenditures. And the reason why I use our expenditures is because generally our expenditures should be less than revenues, which would make the fund balance easier to obtain versus going based off of our revenues. But as you can see, we're very much shy of where we would like to be. And I believe over the next few years, if we're really diligent in making sure that we have cash balances at the end of the year, that we can successfully build a strong, healthy fund balance in about maybe 3 to 4 years. So I'll briefly go over the street fund. We budgeted revenues, again, flat. There's really no word as to whether gas tax will be affected in 2021 by COVID-19. We're assuming that the state will continue to be open, and that not rental registration, but vehicle registrations, that those will continue as well. So we just budgeted flat with 2020 revenues. For street personnel, we did include that third pay in January. And there is an increase in contractual services, 30 grand for tree removal, an increase by 20 grand for snow removal and street cleaning. The snow removal increase is actually for the purchase of salt. So that is all built into that budget, and the 201 fund is actually balanced. Fire equipment fund. This fund is funded mostly through EMS revenue. So it is a self-sustaining fund. The only real changes here are that, let me see here, we have, I forgot to make some changes here. We have $12,000 that we are budgeting for the hydrant maintenance. We reduced that to $12,000 from $60,000. I believe there's $10,000, not $17,000, but $10,000 in here for fire software. And I believe that is all that's budgeted here. No, there's also the $30,379,000 for the ambulance that's also budgeted here. So that is also a change from 2020. On the police levy, again, the real estate taxes are expected to come in below what they were for 2020. So we had to adjust budgeting expenditures on this fund accordingly so that the fund could be balanced. Salaries were reduced by, I want to say, we reduced it by 20% on the police levy, with the increase of 4% for the salary raises and making sure that that third pay in January was covered as well. $5,000 for vehicle repairs in here, with the other 10 grand on the general fund. The reason why it was done that way, again, was so that the police levy would not be in the hole. Fire levy. This one, again, funded by real estate taxes that are coming in below 2020. Here we have the fire salaries budgeted here. There is a 4% increase budgeted. We had to move the chief's salary into the general fund so that this fund could also be balanced. And there aren't very many changes here. The only change here is just that we changed, I want to say changed it to 14,000. I want to say that's for tactical. I'm not sure if that's the proper term for your equipment.
It's for turnout gear.
Turnout gear.
There was a slight increase in the cost of individual sets of turnout gear.
Yes, that's the proper name for it. Okay. So the street levy, again, I still need to work with Ron and Marty just to make sure that we are accounting for all the projects that are going to flow from 2020 into 2021 and for any additional 2021 projects. But as it stands right now, this is how our roads budget is looking for 2021. This
Yeah,
fund is
Ari,
also-
let me just add, because I know that I was in touch with Mr. Cole, and he was unavailable to be able to get a speaker to work. So I do know that he had talked about a couple of priorities for 2021. One of them that he and I have discussed is, as you all know right now, we currently, we rent a street sweeper, and we do that during the summer. We have been discussing that as certainly a potential capital purchase for 2021. Also, I have talked with Marty, and of course, we began this project last year, and that is the signalization here in the city for, in order to optimize traffic flow. So he will still be working on those, replacing those, the controllers in the cabinets for the signals. And so far we've done, well, we went from Ronald Reagan basically to Galbraith, and then we did from Simpson, and we've come east so far down Galbraith Road. So we still have to do the east side of Galbraith, and then also the south portion of Hamilton, all the way down to Oak Knoll. So I do know that those are a couple of his priorities for 2021.
Okay. Okay, and the city center fund, I do not have appropriations for this fund. This is something that we'll have to discuss if there are any projects in mind. I did notice that there were, it's funded through transfers in. So any revenues coming into this fund would be coming out of possibly the general fund. So at this time, there are no appropriations in this fund right now. Finally, the stormwater fund. This one is funded by stormwater assessments and is essentially budgeted according to the revenues that are coming in for those expenditure items. Capital outlay was reduced by 5,000 to match the revenues coming in. So like I said, we will be following up with other department heads to make any other adjustments to the budget, just to make sure that it is balanced, and working with council to make sure that it does reflect the priorities of the city. So we will make adjustments and update you accordingly. And if anyone has questions.
Ms. Hall, I do have a question, sorry. So for police, cutting their salaries by 25%, I saw that in an email that Mr. Strand said that would reduce, that would result in layoffs.
Yes.
How many layoffs? Yeah.
So reducing the levy fund or the general fund by approximately by 20%. So the general fund, that amounts to, in terms of FTEs, I want to say it's about 2 to 4 officers altogether. So I'm not sure about the policy. I know, like, I guess the part-time have to go first or whatever, but in terms of dollars, that's what it would equate to, approximately 4 officers.
It would be 5.
5, okay.
It would be four officers from the levy and the school resource officer.
Okay.
And I will have plenty to say about those things in a few.
Ms. Hall, could you elaborate on that, the city center fund again?
The city center fund is a capital projects fund for the city building.
How does it get revenue? That's where I'm really what I'm looking for.
The revenue is from transfers in. So those are revenues that, for example, if it's funded for 2021, the general fund would budget a transfer out, which is an expense line, and shifts money from the general fund into that fund for any expenditure items for the building.
So that's basically capital to cover the building repairs?
That is my understanding of its use. So at this time, I've not budgeted anything there unless there's some sort of project that's not been communicated, and we can discuss how that would be paid for, whether through just the general fund or through that capital projects fund. But at this time, I've not appropriated any money there.
What? I'm using my memory. Did it say there was like 45 grand in that?
Let me go back. For 2020, there was budgeted a transfer into this fund for 44,000. That has not happened yet. I would have to talk with Ron to see what the purpose of that was for and what the expense was. I've not found anything in any notes from the prior finance director indicating what that was for. So, so far that transfer out or into that fund has not happened yet. So,
Miss Hall and Miss
yes.
Sword, I believe we did this city center. We started it in 2017, 18, 19, whatever it was, just for the roof. Because the roof is what, 22.5 or 27 something every 6 months. What was our, I think that's what this fund was for just to show the roof payment.
I believe that may be correct. I know that we do have a semi-annual payment
Yeah.
that we do make.
And I know that that's like before even y'all's time. So if you want me to search my email and forward you what I have as far as that goes, I can definitely do that. Or search my filing cabinet. It's
That would
probably
be appreciated. Thank you.
okay. One of you guys set a reminder to remind me because we all know I forget.
Okay.
By the way, if you all noticed a second Ron Mosby up there, for some reason, I finally got in here. I've been listening to the whole thing and I've been watching it on the computer. My phone finally got in with audio. So yeah, it's Marty. Hi, I'm here.
I'm Marty.
Yeah, Mary Jo.
Hi, Marty. Welcome to the party.
Well, thank you.
So I don't have any more questions for right now. I am concerned with, of course, our revenues versus our payouts. I would like to hear from the department heads if everybody is cool with that.
I'm fine with that. Actually, on the fire side, this is Brian, by the way. On the fire side, I don't have a whole lot, so I'm going to defer to Mr. Strand if he wants to go first, since he has probably the most to say here.
Brian, if you want to go first, that's fine. That'll give me a chance to calm down before I start screaming. So I'll let you go first.
Okay. Keith, am I able to share my screen?
No, but I can make that happen.
Okay.
One second here.
Everybody see that?
Not yet. Got it.
You're good.
Am I good? All right. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I already covered a lot of of my portion of this. Just want to cover a few things. Obviously, when you're looking at this, there was a 4% raise factored in to both the full and part-time line items. And my salary was moved over from the levy fund over to the general fund, which is why you see the increase here by delineated by the red arrow. That being said, I talked to Ari earlier, and there might be an over projection here in this. This projected 2020 is where we're going to end up this year, but it also includes 2 months where we ran with 6 people instead of 4 during the beginning of the COVID crisis. So I think we're going to, we're going to come in this high, but to base this number off of this is probably incorrect. And we probably should be basing 2020 on this number plus an extra payroll and the 4%. So I have to work with her and figure out what this number is, but I'm guessing that's going to be, $10,000 to $30,000 over, even with the 27 pay periods. So other than that, going down the list here, everything else is pretty flat. The one thing being building maintenance, there's a bump there. There's some damage we had to repair in the roof from the water leaks and all that we got the roof fixed, but unfortunately, some of the ceiling tile got ruined, some of the grid got rusted out, and some of the drywall got ruined in the process while we're waiting for the repairs. So we have to do that. I have windows in the building. I have 2 of the 8 have been repaired already. I'd like to get the other 6 done, and that will probably consume most of what I've asked for here in the 25,000. Everything else is virtually the same as it was this year. That covered our portion of the general fund. Our other main source of revenue is the EMS billing piece. That being said, I did a rolling calendar year, and we're up actually 12.37% so far this year. So while we had a little bit of a change in the structure of our billing, we're paying 6.75%. And on top of that, we were paying between $300 and $500 a month in licensing fees that were based on a per run basis. So rather than keep going down that road, we're going to end up going away from 3 vendors and going with 1 vendor that handles all of our different firehouse products, the EMS reporting, the scheduling, and all of our data management. It'll all be under 1 roof, 1 licensing agreement, but that will come out of operating expenses, which you will see that which is part of the next page here, the next fund. Actually, the same fund, but right here where my arrow is. So the big increase there, the extra 10,000 is to cover that expense. Other than that, this is virtually a push from this year. You guys had budgeted me $60,000 for capital this year. We didn't need to use that because we were able to defer the first ambulance payment onto next year's budget. 30,000 of that 60 will be consumed by that. But that's going to be rolling over. So we do have a bit of a surplus up here in the fire equipment fund, which is great because it gives us a little bit of flexibility to go out and pursue some grants that require matching funds without impacting any of our other line items that have to make cuts to be able to apply for those grants. So we have every intention of applying for every grant we possibly can going into 2021, knowing that we have a little bit of surplus here and even some here. I don't anticipate any big capital needs barring a calamity. Both ambulances are running well, both staff cars are running well, and the fire apparatus are running well at the moment. So I don't expect anything for 2021. So here, I know Mitt already talked about this a little bit. Kind of a shocker to me. I wasn't aware that the property tax revenue was going down so quickly. I was under the assumption with the recent home sales that it actually would be up. I don't think either of us know why that is, but that's the word she's getting on the street. So we had to plan accordingly. That being said, again, this is another basically a push from this year. There's no other increases other than a little bit to the pension that goes with the raises and the full-time wages, another 4%. It's all factored into that. So any questions or concerns as far as the fire department is concerned? No, that's all I really have for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Chief Schran.
Hello. So I had a few things prepared. Basically, I was now I feel like I have to change all the presentation to kind of play some defense because I was not prepared for any of the things then that were talked about in those things as far as cutting and moving from 50% of the general fund when it comes to the police department's make up or take up of the general fund to 43%. I was not prepared for any of that. I submitted a budget that for the most part was exactly the same as 2020. What I was looking at doing or what I had to do was fill everybody in on the 4% contractual raises that council and everybody voted on and put into the FOP contract 2 years ago. As well as for the last 2 years, I've been explaining that we have some obligations because I have 2 officers that'll be retiring. They have 25 to 30 years in, and those payouts will be somewhere in the ballpark of $85,000. So those pretty much took most of the precedent or priority.
Is that combined? I'm sorry, Ryan. Is that a combined 85?
Yeah, that's the 2 together. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so those were my main priorities. Obviously, if we were in a perfect world, we haven't had a police cruiser in a while, so we were looking at replacing some of the police cruisers so that, or at least one police cruiser, so that we could limit, hopefully, the vehicle repair and maintenance budget so that we could keep the cars on the road. My whole plan for 2021 was just trying to keep the lights on and keep the services that we told the citizens that we would provide by the levy and everything, and that they've become accustomed to, so that we can keep those services going. My dream for years has been to take this police department from a reactive police department where we don't get to spend much time patrolling, where we just go out to the calls for service and we're just worried about response times, to more of a proactive police department. And as I've said for years, that's the problem when we're running down to bare bone minimum and then an emergency hits. This is what kind of things happen. I was kind of taken off guard by everything because there was little to no communication there for those things. But my rebuttal to some of those are that obviously 80 to 90% of the police budget is personnel. So to cut in strictly the personnel areas, you really leave me no choice but to remove people and lay off and to not provide the things that we said we were going to provide from the levy. A couple of things to keep in mind on why and how we got here and some of the things. When the levy was proposed 6 years ago, the object or the idea was that 1.7 million was going to come from the general fund. And that's what we had probably back in 2016, 2015, when the levy started. And it's kind of dwindled down from there. The levy money for the police levy was supposed to raise roughly $500,000 to $600,000 a year, with some surplus being used in between there. And the whole idea was that there was going to be roughly 45 potential $1,000 in there for capital improvement budget. That obviously has been dwindled down due to raises, because when the raises have hit over the negotiation of 2 different contracts during that time, it obviously hasn't been included in the general fund going up. The other thing would be that the school resource officer was never planned for during that time. And the way all this came about is the school had security officers in there. And if everybody recalls, there was the bomb threats that the security officers called in, and we were called upon at spur of the moment to create a contract. And the city said, yes, we would do that. And that is on the industry standard of a 75-25 split with the schools. Well, that's important because that 25% of that's officer salary. We didn't just take an officer off the road. We actually had to hire a new officer for that position, which then meant that 25% plus.
I can't hear Ryan anymore. Can anyone?
I cannot either.
I can't either. I'll send him a text real quick. Let him know. Did we just lose him altogether? Yeah, I guess we did.
Yeah, it looks like he's gone.
I think so. He may have lost service or something. While we're waiting for him to come back on, I do want to point out something because Ryan brought up something that Brian had also shared with me before. That was that, interestingly enough, I guess this is a kind of a strange phenomenon, but both the fire department and the police department, of course, did succeed in obtaining levies, and both have stated that even though they got the levies, what ended up happening was the amount of money that was being drawn from the general fund was reduced. I'm not sure why that had happened in the past. I cannot speak to that. Obviously, the money went someplace else, but given the fact that we really only, as a city, from the general fund, we basically provide 2 basic services, and that is police and fire. I don't really know where that is. I would say that I think given that information, clearly Ari and I would be working to try to do our best to at least maintain, a level amount that would be coming from the general fund. But as she pointed out, though, obviously there's not a whole lot that we can do, all things being equal, if the monies are if the 4% is, if it goes into effect, obviously it's going to have to come from someplace else in order to make sure to keep the budget balanced.
I do want to add that it was not an easy decision to, reduce the police budget. I mean, we know that we need police officers in the city, but we cannot change the fact that our revenues have us where we are, that our revenues do not increase at the same rate as our expenses. And again, we were at a $400,000 deficit with everything, every wish list item in the budget. So I don't want to present to you a $400,000 deficit, So if we all want to sit down and figure out another way to go about this, we can, but there's not very much we can do without either eliminating the rest of the government that we have here and just, there's really not much that we can do. there's not a whole lot of decisions that we can make to keep a balanced budget at this point. So, but I'm open to any ideas that anyone has.
Also, I would like to say that, once again, the goal here at this particular point in time is not to try to make all decisions tonight. So I definitely agree with Ms. Zorb. I think the idea was for us to make sure that we presented a budget that could be discussed amongst members of council and then obviously voted on and approved before the end of 2020. That would be the objective that we would like to achieve.
Two things. Mr. Fells, have you heard back from Chief Schran?
I have. He's able to hear, but he still cannot speak. So he's going to call my phone and I might just hold you up to my speaker.
Okay. And then my second thing, Ms. Hall, the presentation that you showed us tonight, is there any way you could forward that to council members, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Perhaps we should go to Mr. Cole in the interim.
I'm cool with that.
I have Ryan here. Hold on one second. Hey, Ryan, I have you on speaker. Are you?
Thank you. I apologize to everybody. I'm sitting here at the police department and the internet went down.
Are you guys able to hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. Did we pay the bill? I don't know. Great.
And the budget cuts begin.
I'm 100% sure that we paid the bill.
It was tongue in cheek. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
If we lose our sense of humor, we've lost everything. So I'm good with that.
Thank you.
So basically what I'm saying is that, yes, I know there needs to be a lot of work done. I think some of my reservations were just it just caught me off guard. But I guess the point is that we do have some tough decisions to make here. I called back in and I heard Ron and Ari, talking, and I think that they're correct. We have some tough decisions to make. The world we're living in with coronavirus that took everybody by off guard, if you would, has left the economy not what we all hoped it would be. And the economy has not been what we hoped it would be in North College Hill for a while. And so this kind of threw us for a loop. I guess my point as the police chief is this, that we're in some tough times and we need to make some tough decisions. And I would more than anything just appreciate that we have some serious conversations going forward about this, because, we can maintain the police department the way it is, right? And we can give the people a level of service that they've become accustomed to, which is where we're at now. But I think that the one thing that's been stated several times, and it's true for not just me, but also Public Works, Finance, Fire Department, everybody, is that salaries and expenses go up. And lately revenues have been kind of staying steady. I think Gary Faust, when he trained me and taught me about a lot of things, said it best when he was talking about budgets and things. And he said, for this amount of money, I can buy you a car. But you have in your Toyotas, I can get you a Toyota sedan, but do you want a Toyota Yaris? Do you want a Toyota Corolla for this amount of money? Do you want a Toyota Corolla that's souped up with leather interior? Do you want a Toyota Camry? Do you want the Toyota Avalon? And I think that's where council's job, and we need to work together as a city to determine what level of service that they want, what we want the police department to look like, what we want the fire department to look like, what we want the city to look like, for future plans, and then we need to start looking for that. The problem that I have, and just being honest, is, we've been down to bare bones for a while. As I said earlier, 80 to 90% of the police budget is personnel, and they're our biggest resource. And so although I can appreciate it because I would love to have a surplus, trying to make a surplus now while we're in an emergency and we have lean years ahead, right? It just means that we need to have more conversations on those and come up with a concrete plan on how we need to get there. Obviously, my position would be as the police chief, don't cut officers on the road and services that we need to provide when, as a city, we only provide so many services anyway. Realistically, we provide police service, we provide paramedic and fire service, and we provide public works. Those are the main three services that we provide. And to Ari's point, the police department is 50% of the general fund's budget. But if you look at it, we also have 18 full-time people on that, and the rest of the city that I'm calculating has roughly 9 in the full-time. So a lot of and the far majority of your resources are tied up in the police department based on the city's previous needs. And what I believe is the city's needs going forward as well. So I think that we have time. I think that we started early, and I appreciate that. I just think that we have a lot of discussion and a lot more things that need to go into this before we decide anything, which has already been stated. And I think when we're having those conversations, we need to be open and honest about exactly what we want, what kind of police department, what kind of fire department, what kind of public works, what kind of finance department we want going forward. And we almost need to make a list of priorities. Because I know from my personal standpoint, we took the police levy out to voters. We asked for a renewal. We did not ask to increase it. We did not ask to make it permanent. That was just, the levy's only 1 year into the renewal. Okay. And we knew that we were going to have some of these things to lay off basically all of the officers from the levy, with the levy money coming back in. Again, I don't know what that tells the citizens and the voters and the things that way. So especially when we still have things like recreation, we still have other things going on. My take on it is when you're in an emergency situation, when you have a pandemic like the coronavirus that hit, you've got to get back to the basics, and we've got to get back to our needs versus our wants. I think all the things that have been described here, from recreation to, community engagement or community, economic development, all of those things are wonderful. I want to see all of those things in North College Hill. I just don't want to do it at the expense or the safety of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strand. I think that one thing that the Finance Committee does need to do as our homework is think about our top priorities for 2021. I think all of council should come together on 3 of our top 3 financial priorities, because you guys are right. All the cost of salaries and living and everything keeps going up, and our revenues are staying flat, and it'll eventually be that we just can't afford it. So we need to find extra ways of revenue, because quite personally, I feel like that we've cut everywhere that we can cut, and we are not doing any capital improvements. We're not making our city look good. We're not having proactive patrol instead of reactive. We don't have as many fire people as we need, or EMTs. And so I think that we all need to continue to have these conversations and figure out what we can do.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to just offer a couple of observations. Number one, I do, what you were saying is absolutely correct. I definitely do believe that, there has to be, the mayor obviously has a vision, and that was incorporated into the proposed budget that was sent, but I absolutely agree that, council obviously is going to have to determine what those priorities are going to be. Having said that, though, I do think that there are a couple things that we do have to take into consideration, and that is that for whatever reason, this phenomenon has been going on for several years. Brian has shown on more than one occasion that the number of calls that we have been receiving from EMS or for EMS services has increased dramatically year over year. And so I say that I use his one example to make this point. There seems to be more of a dependency upon government services from many of the residents. Now, I cannot say why for certain. What I do see, however, is something else that has also taken place, and that is that we actually have fewer owner-occupied properties. And at this point, and you've heard already earlier tonight, we have more renter-occupied properties. And so while I cannot make a direct correlation, it does appear to me, however, that a lot of the calls for service end up coming not so much from necessarily the owner occupied, but perhaps from the renter occupied. The problem is, of course, when a call goes out, nobody says this is, we have to determine whether or not this is an owner occupied home or renter. Rather, it's a resident in the city and they deserve whatever level of service. But I do think that it is important for us to keep in mind that, while we are talking about these things, that there is a greater demand that has come, to our city, and we're not unique in that. I mean, the same thing is happening in, Colerain Township, Springfield Township, Mount Healthy, and certainly the city of Cincinnati. The other part is, and I'm going to kind of stay focused here for a moment, and that is because we've already brought this up. We are in a situation right now with our fire department where we are majority part-time. And of course, we all know that the Mount Healthy passed a fire levy, which is giving them now 7 full-time firefighters. But what that ends up meaning for us is, this, whether or not we want to accept this or not, I think this is going to be the case. If we ourselves don't do something, we're going to be more dependent on mutual aid from our surrounding communities, being Colerain Township, Springfield Township, and Mount Healthy. And so, with those things in mind, I agree with both Chief Fells and Chief Schran that obviously we have to do some very strategic planning as far as that's concerned. And we do have to give thought to, what is going to be a reasonable amount or what will be a reasonable amount of staffing in order to provide, the level of service. I don't want to say that necessarily that people would expect, because I think that, truth be told, sometimes people expect the level of service that might require 30 officers. But that would be able to provide the level of service that I do think that, as Chief Sharan said, that they have come to expect as a result of both the fire levy and the police levy. And of course, that money is not coming from the general fund, but that's still something that we have to work and manage with. So I think keeping those things in mind, I believe, would also be important in this discussion.
Agreed. Anybody else like to ask any questions? Well, I know that we had Mr. Cole up next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Living the dream.
I know. I see a picture of Brian and I see Mary Jo. Hi, Mary Jo. I think Ron covered a lot of what we're planning, working with the traffic boxes, because we've already started the process of changing out these traffic boxes because they were so obsolete. We couldn't even get parts for them. When they broke, that was it. So we're fortunate enough with this, I guess pretty much that gas tax levy, which of course got cut short this year, but we are putting these traffic boxes back in. That's a priority. It's a must have. And of course the tree budget, we had to add a little bit to it because I went through that tree budget that we proposed for last year pretty quick. I held on to some of the money because of emergencies, of course, because, we get these storms and these trees that are weak on the inside that don't show their ugliness until a storm comes and you never realize that the tree was hollow. We've had a few of them. For instance, the one on Joseph there at the end, by the dead end towards the Hamilton Avenue side, that tree was hollow on the inside. And there was 2 weeks before we realized that the tree was hollow and we were going to take it down, and here a storm blew it down, and thank God it blew it down into the street instead of on the houses behind it, because no telling who would have been hurt in that one. So we got lucky there. And I know that we don't want to take down green trees and nice trees, and we're not diving into anything like that. I'm not out to do that. We're only going to take down the trees in the easement that are dead, that are dying, or pose an emergency, threatening to fall on a house or even into the street or onto the wires. So them are the only trees that we're taking down. So I love trees too, and I'd like to keep as many as we can, but the ones that we have to take down, it's a must. And we had to raise that money up in that a little bit because I didn't get done what I needed to get done this year because it's just too short. On the street signs, we were able to replace a few street signs. We did pretty many of them, but a lot of them got taken back down. And of course, we got street signs that are faded out. You can't read anymore. And I know y'all seen them. They're everywhere. And we're going to work on replacing no parking signs. And of course, the street name signs, we still got more that we're going to put up yet. And we got to replace some stop signs that are faded out and speed limit signs. I'd like to get all of our signs updated. We're just going to do a little bit at a time because I know that that's a cost feature. And know that none of that would ever come out of the general budget. It'll all be on public works money and street money. And I guess we're just thankful for that. On the street sweeper, yes, I still want to try to get a street sweeper in the future here. Right now, we're working with Coleraine. This year, we didn't sweep as much as we wanted to, of course, because of COVID. There was the maintenance on there was a lot of things over at Coleraine that didn't happen this year. And we weren't able to come up with a contract until late in the summer. So we've already done the whole city once, and we're going to try to get through the whole city one more time before the season's out, and try to go for it again next year, or try to figure out how to get us a street sweeper, because we need our own sweeper where we can clean our catch basins and stuff like that, these sewers that we have to suck out, because digging these out by hand are atrocious and very, very tough on you. But that's what we've been doing, because you get a debris down in the hole and it clogs up, and of course then everything's backed up and these sewers just fill up. Moving on, wanted to let everybody know that we acquired at Public Works a snowblower, a big snowblower, a walk behind. And this is on a machine that you walk behind it, and it's perfect for the municipal sidewalks. We'll still, it ain't no good for steps, but we'll still take care of that by hand. And around the sidewalks that are at Hamilton and Galbraith up by the intersection, we'll be able to use a snow blower and all of our municipal driveways and stuff like that, the smaller stuff that, this is just going to come in real handy. And it's also got its own snow plow. So if it's icy, we can bust ice with it. So we were real fortunate to get a hold of that. And on the sewer rebuilds, we're still doing everything we can. I just got called out to another one today as I was leaving over on Emerson Avenue, 1900 block. I got one collapsing. We're going to have to cut it out and rebuild it. We rebuild them by hand. It takes all of us to do it, but we're able to accomplish it. And one by one, we're getting these things. And I still probably got about 8 of them out there I got to get to. We did approximately maybe a dozen of them last year, but you fix one, the next one breaks, and that's just how it works. But other than that, has anybody really got any questions or anything?
I do have a question. Mr. Cole, whenever you get a chance, or Mr. Mosby, can you guys possibly talk to Rumpke and see if Rumpke or the state or somebody will pay for garbage cans out of our stormwater money, more city garbage cans?
I don't know if that can be done or not. Ron, do you know?
I'm not sure. When you're saying garbage cans, are you talking about residential garbage cans? Or are you talking about garbage
Public.
cans for the city?
Public garbage cans.
Okay.
And then also, you guys, I guess we did a new contract with Coleraine Avenue late this summer for street sweeping.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Can you forward that over to us, or for street sweeping? Because when did our original one run out?
Oh, they're every year. Each year. So they basically, we borrow, if you will, rent from Coleraine Township for a particular season.
Right, but what did we pay them?
We are paying them, it is $800. What is that, Marty? It's $800.
Yeah, Ron. Last year, what we were doing was $100 per hour, and we were running that thing probably 10 hours a day. So it was coming up to about $1,000 a day when we had it. Now they're charging us, how is it? Is it 800 a day?
Yeah, that's right. It's a daily rate.
Yeah. So actually it works out pretty good on our benefit. And it's pretty much the same contract that we had last year. We carry the insurance on it, our end of it. So when we're operating, if something happens, it is a $150,000 machine. Yeah, it works out pretty good. I mean, it's, when we get it, we have to really bust butt, get everything together, get signs out and do everything we can, try to get, and I still seen signs out there. We got to get back out there and get some more of them signs down. But it's a big effort. But like I said, if we have our own, we can just go out once a week, twice a week, somebody in the street sweeper by themselves and just sweep and go from quadrant to quadrant, street to street, just like we used to. And the streets were always beautiful. So.
How many days a year are we using it?
We try to get it once a month for 4 days,
Okay.
usually the 3rd or 4th week of the month.
But you've only done them once so far this year, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mary Jo. That with the COVID thing and things weren't operating real well over there, we weren't able to acquire a contract until it was pretty much August. And it was the end of July, really. So we were able to do the 1st and 2nd quadrant last month. And then this month we did the 3rd and 4th quadrant, and we were able to get all the mains. And then next month we're going to try to get the quadrants one more time and get the mains one more time, because I know by the end of October, they don't want to bring it out anymore. It just worked out that way. this whole thing was all screwed up. This COVID thing, it messed up everything.
I have a couple quick questions. So I noticed I drive south on Hamilton Avenue, and I noticed up through College Hill, they now have painted on the right of way. It says 25 miles per hour painted on the ground. Can we look into doing something like that? We already do our own like painting, right? Like our crosswalk painting. So we have all the stuff to do the painting, right? Am I way off base on that?
No, I get what you're saying. Like the big on the street, it says 25 miles an hour I like it.
Yeah. Can we maybe look into
We
that?
do have our own, yes, we have our own painting materials.
All right. And then the second thing, I took my grandkids up to that park by the school. That's the school's park during the day and our park at night, or whatever that agreement is. But Marty, I noticed there were a lot of dead limbs in those trees that those kids are playing under. So if you could please take a look at those, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll get in there. And a matter of fact, there's a tree in there that I'd like to just get rid of, because we have one in there which I think is just a hazard. And yeah, we do need to get in there and get them out of there. You're right.
Thank you.
Marty?
Awesome.
And then
Yeah.
I have a question for you, actually. It's just kind of not really related to your budget, but the street that I live off of Clover Nook, and there's like a dead tree that's leaning on the wires. It's been there for about 6 months. I thought maybe the owner would take care of it, but apparently they're not. Is there any way you can drive down there and take a look at that?
Sure. We can run down there, and it's on Clover Nook, you say?
Yes.
About the address, you got a guesstimate?
I'm not sure what the address is. It's over the bridge though. So it's on, like if you're coming from Galbraith, the Galbraith side, it's over that little bridge. And it'll be on your left-hand side if you're coming from the Galbraith side.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. Do you know if it's an easement tree, or do you know if it's a private owner?
It's definitely in their yard, and it's like been pulled up from the roots, maybe by a storm or something, but it is laying directly on the wires.
Okay, what I'll do, I'll run down there tomorrow and take a look at that. It sounds like I might have to call Duke in on that, because if it's on the wires, we can't touch it.
Okay. Thank you.
Marty, one last thing that is kind of budgetary wise, the baseball building at Dunley Park, how bad is it? The roof, I guess.
The building is very bad. You don't even want to go in it. I have gone in it, and because we still have a couple of things in there, and it's so overrun with mold, and it's in the walls. The roof is gone. It's loaded with animals. It really needs to be wrecked. It needs to be taken down, because there's no saving this building. It's done. The mold is inside the block, and it's a block building. The mold is inside it, and there's black water coming out of them. It's bad.
I've already gotten some estimates on it, and we do have some CDBG dollars that are available. So I've already talked to the county about using those funds to demolish the building.
Are you talking about the funds that were for demolishing or acquiring and demolishing one of the buildings on Sundown for parking?
Well, what I'm saying is there are resources that we still have that are unused as far as CDBG dollars are available.
Right.
Yeah.
Mary DeWald and myself were the public hearing for that. And so, and I know that we need to schedule a public hearing sometime soon for the next 3 years of funding. I'm pretty sure the next round is coming up.
Right. We would need a public hearing for the next round, although that has not happened as of yet.
Yeah, the baseball building itself, it's I don't even want anybody going in it. It's that bad, and I'm scared something will fall on them, or with the mold that's in there, somebody could end up really ill really fast.
Mr. Fells, do you guys want to light it on fire as a practice episode?
No, we don't. Somebody have to breathe that somewhere down the line. Yeah. But thanks for the offer.
We'd still have to wreck it because the block walls will still be up. The roof will still burn, but the block will still be up. We'll still have to wreck it.
Anything else for Mr. Cole?
I pretty much spoke my piece. It's good to see you all, at least hear you.
Yes, sir. Okay. So does anybody have any budgetary concerns, comments? I know that we are down 2 council members, well, 1.5, and that we need to get all of council who is interested in going through the budget together as soon as possible, because I'd like to not rush through this one, but get it done before January, so we're not scheduling special meetings in January.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment. I would like to thank Ms. Hall. I know it wasn't an easy task for her to put this budget together. We had several conversations about it. I know she and Mr. Mosby met. I met with them a couple of times, and it wasn't easy. Even at the final hour on Friday, she was still making decisions, making changes. We don't want to see any cuts in any department. We want to also would like to have a sustainable city as well. I know we can blame a lot on COVID, but there are some other things that we need to either tighten up or reorganize. We're in the process of doing that, but we're going to need everybody's help. The department heads, we don't want them to lose any employees, any of their, we want them to have everything that they need in order to have a sustainable department for our city. I'm sure each and every one of us want to see things maybe different, the beautification piece of it. We can talk about it all day, but we need to get past to talk about and be about. So if, when you meet with Ms. Hall, I would just encourage you to bring your ideas, whatever they may be. Everybody seems to have a whole lot of ideas and we shoot them out, but we need to probably try to do the things to get them into motion, to get them moving. We do need to have a reserve fund. However that's possible, or however, whatever we need to do, we need to do it. So I just would like to commend Ms. Hall. I know it was a lot of work and I know it wasn't easy, even after we met on Friday evening. She expressed her concerns about not wanting to take anything from the police department or doing that drastic of a cut. So if we just work together, and I would, Chief Fells, Chief Strand, if you have those ideas, I know we talked about a couple of ideas, Chief Strand, if you would bring those to Ari, and maybe we can look into making some of those things happen. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have 2 quick questions. Chief Shane, can you hear me? Are you still on speaker via Mr. Fells?
He is not with me. He hung up a while back.
Oh.
Said he'd be
crap.
listening. I guess it was going to try to phone in. Doesn't like he's able to do that.
I don't see him. I'll send him an email. Thank you.
Okay. Is he one of the attendees here? Maybe in that? Look at the top of participants. I just allowed him to talk. Chief Strand, is that you?
Hello.
There he is.
Wow, son of a gun.
Ha-ha.
So I've been listening the whole time, but the host just wouldn't let me talk until now. So I apologize.
Wow, how's it feel to be muzzled like that?
Like fire chief, doesn't
it? Yeah,
Hey.
something like that.
Hey, Chief Strand, I got 2 quick questions for you. Is it breaking any kind of rules to ask you who the 2 people are that are retiring?
I mean, I can just say it because they haven't put in anything official yet, but they have their time in. So I can't force them to retire. Obviously, the choice is still theirs. But they just notified me that they would have their time in and would be able to retire, and that is Lieutenant Moss and Officer Lazencheck.
All right, and then the other question I wanted to ask you real quick, and I understand you probably cannot answer this off the top of your head, but if there was like no overtime, would that allow to maintain all of the personnel, and then no individuals would be cut, but just overtime would be cut? So
Wow,
if you could maybe look into that. I understand you probably don't have those numbers now.
I can tell you it's not possible in our business. I wish I could tell you a different answer. I really do. The problem comes in the police world. We pay them to fill the schedule. We pay them, and their 40 hours a week is 8-hour shifts, right? 5 days a week. When they go to court, so when they make an arrest on a domestic violence case, when they make an arrest on any kind of case downtown, that's automatically overtime. So in a perfect world, I would be able to control the overtime and say we're never, ever going to have overtime in the police department, but that's not realistic and it doesn't work. And so
I understand. It was just an idea that I was throwing. I was
right.
Trying to save people.
I agree. I love the ideas. There are some things, obviously, like I said, I was kind of taken a little bit back because I didn't know the full extent of everything going into tonight's meeting. I kind of learned about it on Friday with the email. I mean, there's some things, obviously, that we can't cut and cut down to bare bones, so we could just do everything to save that way. There's just a lot of things that we need to look at and discuss. I think Mayor Nichols was correct. I brought up some ideas on some things that I've heard. Obviously, the TOWAT's been one of them for a while, to try to look into an interest-free loan to try to put the TOWAT in and start paying that off slowly year after year, and then just putting a little bit back into those things as what we need. Obviously, some of that is to work with the school. If one of the first persons we're going to lay off is the SRO, we put it in the SRO contract that they have the first option to pay 100% of that plus the salaries, which would help us out with a big hit. So there's just a lot of little things that we could start working on, we could start talking about. And I think Mayor Nichols was correct in saying we just need to open up those conversations. We need to get serious and have those conversations, throw out some ideas. And then when we find some good ideas, we just need to move forward rather quickly so we can try to solve some serious problems that we have.
Miss Bailey, did you still want to move into executive session? I mean, it's 10 after 9.
We don't know. We don't have to. It's just me, you, and Miss Underwood. That would be all that would be going into executive session. All that I ask is that you guys look over your emails of the, hold on, I'm about to get shot with a Nerf gun, of the salary ordinance. Josh, you quit, please. Of the salary ordinance, and just double, triple check it. And see, sorry. if there is any more changes that we need to make on it, or if we're ready to take it out. But I think that we need to get moving on that. And then, of course, we need to make a decision as a whole council of the law director and law director's salary and what we expect from him, because that has been going on long enough as well.
Do you care to forward your latest copy? Because I probably have 10 copies of that salary ordinance.
Okay.
Can you send the one that we think needs to go forward?
I think that I did that, but my email's been a little funny lately. So I think that I did that earlier, but if I didn't, yes, I will resend that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. What I am looking for, though, is I am looking for the piece of legislation, a digital form, I guess, of the one that says that the fire chief will make X amount above the deputy chief, and the deputy chief will make X amount above the lieutenants. I think it's from 2017.
I'll look for it and send it to you.
Awesome. Cool. Other than that, I guess, yeah, if you and Orica will look over that, and I will send it also to Mr. Mosby, because I know that I've made changes to it, and to Mr. Dieters, but I'd like to get that out sooner than later. Do we want to have a special finance meeting or committee of the whole, or do we want to wait another month for this and budgets and all that fun stuff?
Well, just off the cuff, I would think we should at least try to wait until we get 2 new members. I don't know how rapidly that will happen, but the budget is a major part of what council's responsibilities are. So if the new people could be incorporated in that process, I think they should be.
Yes, ma'am.
But I understand that this has to move forward, so I don't want to wait too long for that. So we'll have to find a sweet spot somewhere in the middle.
Awesome. I'm more particularly concerned with the salary ordinance as far as moving that forward than I am the budget right now, because of course we're going to have the long line item by line item budget work session with everybody, but yeah, we'll wait until we have a new council members. Awesome. And then before our meeting next Monday, I figure I will ask you two first. Are either of you two interested in being the co-chair of finance?
No.
I would,
Okay.
since there's nobody left on this call. Erica got in her no fast.
Awesome. All right. Other than that, I don't have anything. If anybody else wants to take the floor for a minute, I'm cool with that. Other than that, we can get off. I mean, we can adjourn, I should say.
I motion we adjourn. I don't see anybody unmuting.
I second.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.